The morning sun filtered softly through the kitchen curtains as I stirred a pot of oatmeal on the stove. The house felt unusually quiet. Emily was home from college for the weekend, and I had imagined laughter, stories, and the warmth of our old routines. Instead, there had been distance, cold, invisible, but heavy enough to fill the air. I turned to her and said gently, "Sweetheart, could you give me a hand with the fence out back? The wood's starting to rot." She didn't look up from her phone. "Mom, seriously, just hire someone. You're too old for that kind of work." I tried to smile, pretending it didn't hurt. "You know we can't really afford that right now. Besides, I've always handled it myself. It'll be nice to do it together, like we used to." That's when she sighed dramatically, tossed her phone onto the table, and said with a laugh that wasn't kind, "You're old and pathetic, Mom. Watching you try to fix things is honestly sad." The words sliced through me before I could even react. I froze, the spoon slipping from my hand and clattering against the pot. My heart sank, not from anger, but from something deeper, older. I remembered when she was little, when she'd follow me into the garden with her tiny gloves and messy pigtails, calling me her hero. Now, her eyes saw me as a burden. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the oatmeal as it bubbled quietly. The smell of cinnamon and milk filled the air, but all I could feel was the silence between us, thick, heavy, unfixable. Emily grabbed her coat and said, "I'm going out with friends," before disappearing out the door. The screen door slammed behind her, leaving only the echo of her laughter and the faint tremor in my hands. I turned off the stove, walked to the window, and looked out at the fence, the same one her father and I had built years ago. The paint was peeling, the wood splintered. It looked tired. Maybe, I thought, it looked a bit like me. But as I stood there watching it sway in the breeze, something stirred quietly inside me, a spark of the woman I used to be, the one who didn't break easily. The next morning, the sky was painted in pale shades of gold and blue as I stepped outside, the chill of dawn biting softly at my skin. The air was still, except for the rustle of the old oak tree and the creak of the broken fence swaying slightly in the breeze. I tightened my scarf and whispered to myself, "Let's see if these old hands still remember how." I gathered the tools from the shed, the hammer, the nails, the paintbrush I hadn't used in years. Each piece was coated with dust, memories clinging to them like cobwebs. My husband and I used to spend weekends fixing this fence while Emily played in the grass, pretending she was a princess guarding her castle. The thought brought a faint smile to my lips, though it stung too. The first few nails were difficult. My grip wasn't as strong as it used to be, and every swing of the hammer echoed through my joints. But with every strike, I felt something shift inside me, an old rhythm, a sense of purpose I'd nearly forgotten. The hours passed. The sun rose higher. Sweat dripped down my temple, and my back screamed in protest, but I refused to stop. By noon, I had replaced every rotten board. By afternoon, the new paint shone in the light, a soft, warm brown, like the color of the soil after rain. I stood back and looked at my work, my chest heaving, my clothes stained, but my spirit alive again. Just as I was cleaning the brushes, I heard footsteps behind me. Emily's voice broke the quiet. "Mom, what are you doing?" I turned to see her standing there, phone in hand, her makeup perfect, her expression caught between disbelief and confusion. "I'm fixing the fence," I said simply, brushing the dirt from my palms. Her eyes scanned the fence from one end to the other, then back at me. "You did all of this?" I nodded. It needed to be done. For a moment, she said nothing. Her eyes softened, and I saw something flicker there, something like shame, or maybe realization. She looked at my hands, trembling slightly from exhaustion, the small cuts on my knuckles, the sunburn on my cheeks. "Mom," she whispered, "you should have told me. I could have helped." I smiled faintly. "You already told me what you thought of that." Her lips parted, but no words came. She lowered her phone slowly, almost like she was embarrassed to be holding it. I could see the question in her eyes, the one she didn't know how to ask. "Why did you do it?" But I didn't need to answer. The fence stood tall beside me, every nail, every brush stroke speaking for itself. Emily stood there for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the freshly mended fence, her chest rising and falling with slow, uneven breaths. The wind picked up softly, carrying the scent of paint and cut wood through the yard. She finally looked back at me, eyes glistening. "Why didn't you wait for me?" she asked, her voice quieter than before, stripped of the sharpness it once carried. I leaned on the handle of the paintbrush, smiling faintly. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, if you wait for others, things never get done. And besides," I said, meeting her eyes, "I needed to remind myself that I still could." She took a step closer, guilt flickering in her expression like a candle fighting wind. I didn't mean what I said yesterday, I was just hurt, I interrupted softly. I know. You're growing, learning, trying to find your place in a world that doesn't always make room for kindness. I was your age once, remember? Her lips trembled. But I shouldn't have said those things. I didn't realize how much they'd hurt you. I placed my paintbrush down and wiped my hands on my old apron. My knees ached as I walked toward her, but I stood tall. Words have power, Emily. They can build or destroy. But the beautiful thing is, so do actions. And today, I chose to build. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She reached for me suddenly, arms wrapping around my shoulders. I felt her body shake as she whispered, I'm so sorry, Mom, I don't deserve you. I held her tightly, my chin resting on her hair, the smell of her shampoo mingling with the scent of paint and wood. You don't need to deserve me, I murmured. You're my daughter. That's enough. For a while, we just stood there, mother and daughter, two women from different worlds but bound by something unbreakable. When we finally pulled apart, she glanced again at the fence and smiled through her tears. It's beautiful, she said softly. I nodded, the afternoon sun warming my face. It's strong, I replied. Just like us. She laughed a little, wiping her eyes. You're not old and pathetic, Mom. You're incredible. I smiled, my heart full but calm. Old means of lived, Emily. And every scar, every wrinkle, every lesson, is proof that I'm still standing. As the sun began to sink behind the trees, casting a golden glow over the fence and the two of us beside it, I realized something quietly powerful. Sometimes, the best way to teach your child respect isn't through anger or punishment, it's through strength, grace, and the kind of love that never stops building.